Hey, Steve.
Hey, Emma. What's up?
Fellow actor
Yes.
and musician,
Yes.
etc.
Etc. Yeah,
Many
lots of other
things.
things.
Yeah.
I acting is the big thing for me right now. I've done music so much in my life, and then I write as well. I have written, let me say it that way. Podcast host at certain points, photographer, design leader, and user experience, all sorts of shit.
A creative individual for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think for me it's all about trying to tell stories and connect with people. That's like my biggest focus. That's what I truly love.
So now you're living out here in Asia, and you're in the creative industry. And how do you find that out here? Like navigating that?
It's amazing. I think it's fun. I love networking. Like, you know, that's part of who I am, I think, is just meeting people and learning from new people is really fun. So I started acting back in college, really. I went to university. I studied acting in university, which was great. That was a long time ago, in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I was young, and I kind of became a douchebag. Like, my ego got the better of me at the time. And I was like, really like, oh, I'm a serious actor, you know, and I just didn't really like who I was. And so I stopped acting and focused on music at the time, and pursued music really extensively since then. But I've always had this like itch to get back into acting. And through various sort of like kismet sort of steps, I was able to kind of resuscitate that acting bug and career here, of all places. And I love the community here. I feel so welcome in this acting community, in the filmmaking community, the theater community. It's all great. And people are generally like pretty helpful. I don't feel like there's this competitive nature. Maybe I just don't feel it. But like, I lived in LA, and I wasn't acting in LA, but I was in music in LA. And the competition there is like fierce. Like, people are, I don't know, it's just a different type of community. Let me say it that way.
Super interesting that you said that. And I was going to say, like, is that just in comparison, or is that just kind of general? I also agree. Like, I don't know if that's just because of how I work. I don't see the competition. But I don't know if that's me or if that's Thailand specifically, because I haven't experienced it in another country as such.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is a bit of a cutthroat industry, and it can be out here still.
Sure.
But I
like,
don't know if...
I don't care. Like, I want the best person to get the role, and I know that it's not about whether you're the best actor or anything like that. It's just about if you look the part, or maybe they have a cast and they already have a bald guy with a beard, and like, they can't have two. Yeah. So I get it. Like, it happens. And whatever, you know, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to have fun and do the best work I can in the moment. And if I get the opportunity, I will show up and I will absolutely do the best I can. And if I don't, I do my best not to take it to heart. But sometimes, like, you go on these castings where it's like, oh, fuck, I would be so good for this, you know?
Yes.
And then you don't get it, and shit happens.
Let's talk about that, because I think, you know, this is a big thing, right? It definitely takes a certain level of mindset, courage, and also just navigating your nervous system when it comes to acting. I think some people like perceive actors to be like, oh, we're all like really confident, outgoing, extrovert individuals. Couldn't be further from the truth, in my opinion. And you know, I think to put yourself out on a pedestal to be judged is one thing. Like, how do you navigate? I mean, have you ever had any moments within your acting where you were just like really super nervous about an audition? Or, I mean, you do plays. And we will talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, have you got any experiences that you can remember where you really kind of crumbled?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you, I think, like, so for sure, I get nervous, definitely. I hate self-tapes because there's no direction, you know? Like, I'm so grateful that my wife helps me with self-tapes, and she's amazing at that. But like, you're not working with anyone in the production, so you don't know what you're doing, if it's right or wrong. In the moment, you can't make these micro adjustments, which kind of sucks. But so I prefer in-person auditions because I have a little bit more control because I can ask questions and I can show them who I am outside of the role. But I would say that recently I was at a class, and it's a Meisner class, and I do not resonate with Meisner technique. It's just not for me. But I understand the value of it. And I was in class, and it was just, moment to moment, and I was just like, I had nothing. I was like blank. And it sucked. I'm on stage in front of my classmates, and I want to do good work and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of felt like I was like, wow, I don't know anything. I'm terrible, right? All this stuff. And we finished, and the teacher was like, how did that feel? And I was like, oh, it was awful, And he was like, yeah, it was. And that's what I need to hear.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't wrong in saying that. I appreciated that. So yeah, I think it happens all the time, like nerves,
Yeah, right. And then if you let
And
it get the
doubt.
better of you, then
Yeah.
that can sometimes be the outcome. You're not terrible. You're not terrible. You're very
Thank
well
you.
established. You're well trained. You have it. But, in some ways that's kind of comforting, especially to the newcomers, right? That you can still have these moments even as a fully
Yeah.
experienced actor.
Yeah.
Especially when you're stepping into a zone that you might not have done before, like,
Yeah.
Meisner or something, or a different environment.
Right.
So then, like, when you went home after that day, like, what did that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, well, I first, I got off stage. So we talked about it, right? Like, this is Eric Fleshman's class, name dropping, and he's fantastic, and he's really good at curating those moments so that we learn from what just happened. And we had a great conversation in the moment of why was that, he's asking me, like, what happened? I wasn't thinking, I was thinking too much, this situation. So I got off stage and sat down and texted my wife and was like, well, I'm having a bad day, right? Like, rough day at class, but it's okay. And I just kind of let it go. But when I got home, I talked to my wife about it. She was like, what happened? And I was like, well, I just kind of froze up. I didn't know what to do. And that's an area for me as an actor that I want to work on, which is improv. I don't have the opportunity. I haven't had the opportunity lately to work on that. And I feel like that's what I need so that I can be better in the moment. But yeah, I just, I do my best to try to this is a moment that happened and it's in the past, and I don't live in the past, I live in the present. That's what I try to do. The reality is some sort of blend of fuck. And I hope they don't think I'm awful, and I hope I didn't embarrass myself and blah, blah, blah.
Because that's when it can get dangerous, is to think, like, to kind of almost spiral, or to believe that was now your truth.
Yes.
Oh, I'm a bad actor
Yes.
because of that one experience.
Yes.
And I think, maybe some individuals would really hold on to that and be like, this is now my truth. Like, I'm obviously bad because of this bad experience.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, how would you then navigate out of that if you started spiraling? You had someone to talk it through with, which I think is super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how, if you didn't have your wife who was so supportive to speak to, what do you think you would have done in that moment?
Well, I would say it's hard to reflect on what I can tell you what I have done before that. Like, before I had her in my life to sort of have these conversations with, I would have absolutely let it get to me. And I would have been like, why am I doing this? I should just quit because of this moment. And I think I've gone through enough of those moments that I know that quitting is not the right answer. But sometimes it is, to be honest. Sometimes it is just like oh, you know what? This isn't for me.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of those moments. But
How did you know? How do you know the difference between, okay, this isn't for me, or...
I think because of what you just said to me, which was so sweet to say, like, well, you have established yourself. You see me as, you were like, it was very plain when you just said it a few minutes ago, like, dude, you're a good actor, relax, kind of thing. You didn't say it that way, but you're a good actor. Let's just put that aside because that's a truth. So I believe that. I have to trust you or my wife or my teacher or my colleagues more than myself.
Right,
Because,
so the confidence is kind of external almost, like, okay.
Yeah, because I can't judge myself in an unbiased way. It's an impossibility. But you all can. Obviously, you're biased because you're rooting for me, but you wouldn't lead me astray. I think I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't be like, you're good, ooh, Right, you would just not say anything, I'd hope. And so I think like, it's not up to me to judge myself in a creative endeavor. It's up to me to express as much as possible within the parameters that I have, and then other people can judge it. Other people are going to be happy to critique the shit out of anything anyone puts out. I don't need to be the first person to do that. And so I think it's like more important for me to keep the faucet on than to turn it off and reassess, if that makes sense. Because like, if I start questioning myself, then I'm not going to do anything. And then what good is that? And if there's value in what I do, which I think and hope that there is, then it's not up to me to stop that. People will tell me, that's no good. Like Eric, he was like, that wasn't good. Correct. No offense taken, And I think like, same with the play, like we did the play that we'll talk about surely, but like, you afterwards, you had some questions, you asked at least one question of the panel, and it was like, I don't remember what it was, but the sentiment was kind of like, how the fuck do you do that?
I remember what the question was.
Yeah.
Because you played a really kind of dark character. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my question was, how do you detach from that emotion when you then have to play such a character, and then you just kind of like go home to your wife? Yeah,
and then just like, hey,
how do you detach from the character and move on?
Yeah. And what a good question, and I won't get into that answer now because it's not fresh for me, but that, to me, that question shows me that I did something to impact you. Therefore, I have to just trust that is true, right? It's whether I thought I had a good show or not doesn't matter. You were there, it affected you in a way to ask this question. That's the end of it. I'm done. My performance is over. I don't have to think about it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I just love that.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks a little bit into imposter syndrome as well, which, again, I know A-list actors that still struggle with imposter syndrome. And this is incredibly internal. So a lot of that is also, if you can't like navigate the internal dialogue, you do need external validation sometimes if you suffer with things like imposter syndrome. Which
is real.
I
have it all the time.
Real. Yes.
Every time I turn on a self-tape and I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I'm terrible. Every time. Because I just see me. I don't see anyone else. And I don't, so to me, that's interesting. I want to talk about that actually with you, because that's a curious predicament. But to sort of kind of answer this question, the idea of like imposter syndrome is very real, and it hits me all the time. I mean, like going to class, like that day that I had that class, I was like, wow, what am I doing? After performances of that play in particular, I was like, wow, oh my God, should I even be here? Like I'm acting opposite these amazing actors and actresses. And I'm like, wow, like I'm not good, Why? Where does it come from? I don't know, It's just like that, the inner saboteur, the ego, being afraid to be seen, all these things. I shot a film just last weekend. It's Monday, but it was a couple weeks ago. And it was a story that I created and produced and starred in. And I'm on set thinking I'm like the worst one there. What's up with that?
What is
like,
up with
what's
that?
up with that? And like emotionally, it's like today, it's no big deal. Like shit happens. I did my job and that was it. But while I was there, I was like, wow, I'm like the least qualified person to be here. Why?
I'm going to ask a question because I kind of know a little bit about that production. And I know that you kind of knew a lot of people within that production.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have had the same feeling if other people that you'd never worked with before, like they were all strangers?
I think it would be worse, to be honest.
You think it would be worse?
Yeah, because in my mind, what I do is I like create backstory for all of them in real life. Like they're super highly qualified, extremely wonderful professionals, and I'm not. For whatever reason I'm not, I don't know. Like I can't justify that within myself. But I think knowing them makes it a little easier because like I've seen their work. I know who they are. They're just regular people, and they just happen to be super talented. But I think if I don't know them, it would be worse. Like I got a job on a Thai Lacorn a year and a half ago or so, where I was on a TV set, a Thai TV set, as like one of 3 white people, non-Thai speakers, and I was terrified, because I'm like, holy shit. And all I had to do was, I played a cameraman from the 1900s. So I had the big mustache at the time, and they were like, perfect. And so I just played a cameraman. All I had to do was count down 3, 2, 1, and cheese. I think it wasn't cheese, but it was 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 1, and I was terrified.
It's crazy.
And they like did the whole production stops, and they do this like zoom close, this push close, and I'm like, and I didn't have anything to do, but it was like super scary. And I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah, because like I've seen you do an entire play, which that baffles me because we've chatted a little bit about this before. Mm-hmm. I'm so intimidated. It's a completely different environment, film and TV to theatre, because I don't know. Personally, like film and TV, it's quite an intimate environment that you're in. Yes, there can be loads of people there, but they're all doing something. Yeah. They have a job to do. So their eyes might be on you, but they're looking like, is there a shadow? Yeah. Is there some dust? Might be looking at you, but they're not hyper-focused. When you're in a play, you've literally got a spotlight and everyone is hyper-focused. Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't know, like, if you feel the same, like, fears or what when you do your play, but for you to say, like, that you were terrified to do, like, 3, 2, 1, but then you can go out on
do a
stage.
90-minute play,
Yeah, it's a bit...
It is interesting.
What is it? Like, what is the difference?
So I know what the difference is. I've been thinking about this a lot because I shot this short film recently, and I was thinking about it a lot. Like, why? Because there was one scene that it took me... I could not get it. I just couldn't get it. And I didn't write this script, so I hired a script writer, Rita, who is amazing.
Shout out.
Amazing, because I was able to she like interviewed me, and I was like, here's the story that I'm trying to tell, and then like she comes back with a first draft that was like, I was like bawling, like, oh my God, like how did you do this? And then George K., the director, he wrote the screenplay, and so then he kind of added the technical elements into it. So it's like I understood and knew the scene. I lived the scene. It was a scene that I had created, and I still just couldn't do it. And so and then I have all this pressure of everyone. Well, I agree that they're not looking at me. They're looking at their job, the focus puller, the cameraman, the lighting, the sound guy, whatever. But I just felt like I couldn't get in the flow. And so that's the difference to me, is in theater, it's all go, and no one's recording it. So there's no, like, it's not going to be there forever. Once I'm done with that scene, it's over. I don't prefer one to the other. I just think they're both cool and they offer different things. Mm-hmm. And theater's so much fun because you get an immediate response from the crowd of good or bad. Mm-hmm. Because if you tell them a joke and they don't laugh...
Yeah, but at the same time, like, that would break me. I'd just be like, okay,
like,
I'm going to go now.
And maybe you shouldn't just stand up. Yeah. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that it's over. So you're just on to the next one.
Well, yeah, you say that, and I really appreciate that you say that. That just goes to show, like, how you kind of know how to navigate your mindset. Yeah. But I know that there's going to be some people out there who are like, BS. Like,
sure.
There's no way I can go off and just be like, okay, well, it's over now. Like, they would probably beat themselves up, like,
of course,
for a few days.
Which I think is natural, but I think that's the thing that we have to, as entertainers, to put it in a weird way, but like, we're out there to do a job, and if we want to do that job, then we have to get over ourselves. That's part of the job.
And how would you do that? What does that look like?
It's a lot of therapy, to be honest. Like a ton of therapy, just because like I've been going to therapy for for a long time. I can't even remember, 20 plus years. And it has been so helpful because what we do is we create these stories for ourselves that are not necessarily true, but we make them true because we believe them. And I think that's bullshit. I think that's our ego, our inner saboteur, our fear. To me, like, it all stems, the way I see life and our approach to life, all of our sort of choices and decisions stem from one of two places, a place of love or a place of fear. And everything stems from those places. And I have tried to do my best to say, okay, when I'm in a moment and I'm feeling emotional, I'm like, hold on, slow down. Where am I coming from? What am I trying to do? What do I need? Do I need to come from a place of love or come from a place of fear? And I do my best never to come from a place of fear, unless I'm like, it's danger for my life, which is pretty rare nowadays in this society. Well, I mean, well, that's I don't want to.
Different story.
Yeah, or come from a place of love and say, okay, what am I trying to gain here? Am I trying to be understood? Am I trying to understand? It's usually one of those two things. Or am I trying to just express myself and be heard or seen or whatever? And so I'm kind of straying from the point here, but like coming back to the question of like, how does one train themselves to kind of get over their bullshit, to get over their ego? I think it's just a ton of mental work. You have to, no one's going to do it for you. So do you want to get better? Okay, well, here's part of the job, you know? And so no one's going to come over and go, oh, it's okay, you can be not good. You don't want that, I don't want that. I want to be good. How do I get good? And what does good look like?
Right.
And if good is me telling a funny joke as a stand-up comedian, or crying on stage in a play, or writing a piece of music that I get to tour the world with, great. But like, I need to define what that is so that I can work towards that goal in achievable steps. You know, I can't just be like, I want to be famous, and then, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I don't know. I don't want to be famous, just for the record, but you know, like the idea of just kind of like, you have to try. You have to just try stuff, and if it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think that's super difficult for people though. Because then we come back around to the fear of failure.
Yeah. So what happens if you fail? What happens if you fail? So what?
And that is the exact way that we should go about it, right? But yeah, way easier said than done.
Of course, yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes there are big risks involved as well, especially like, for example, if you have the dream to be an entrepreneur, and maybe you have to like get out a big loan to get started with, and
totally.
Yeah, like there's a lot of fears around success or failure, let's say. Actually, fear of success. That's another thing that's not spoken about enough.
100%.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there are stepping stones. But I like what you said about you have a vision, and then if that vision is something that you feel so strongly about, and you keep that in mind, then you just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like your path, because it's easy to get lost. I think, and then that's when people can start to go negative or doubt. Yeah. But if you know that that's what you want, and you accept that it's not going to be a straight line,
exactly.
Then
like,
that can.
That to me is, there's a great phrase that I love. Not every delay is a denial. And so, for example, I'm trying to get cast in stuff because I'm an actor, and so I'm submitting all this stuff, and I'm not getting cast at the rate that I want to. But just because I'm not getting cast doesn't mean I'm not worthy to get cast at some point for the right project. And so I have to really believe that not every delay of not getting cast is a denial of you shouldn't be an actor, right? And it's tricky. But you have to also think about what's the alternative. So, okay, I have this goal of wanting to get cast in, you know, a feature-length, big-budget movie, for example. Okay, so I keep auditioning, I send in these self-tapes, blah, blah, blah. I could not do that because I'm scared. I'm scared to be successful, or I'm scared to fail. Okay, well then what do? Well, then I do nothing. Okay, well then what? Then I build resentment. Then I feel, then I start to like hate my situation. I wish I was, and then once we start wishing, we're kind of screwed. Wishing is just a plan without action, or it's a dream without a plan, that's what it is. And wishing doesn't get you anywhere. So I try to think about these both sides. Okay, so I have this thing that I'm kind of afraid of, because I agree with you that success can be scary. But if I don't do it, then who am I? You know, and that looks worse than trying and failing, or trying and having to deal with success, which can be scary. You know what I mean?
Have you always been able to be vulnerable and authentic and yourself? Like you show up like that now. Have you always been able to do that, or has there been a time in your life where you didn't feel able to do that?
First, thank you. Yeah, thank you for observing that about me. I appreciate that, because I do my best to be very transparent, and I think vulnerability is a critical piece of that, because vulnerability is what brings people together. Because oftentimes when we see vulnerability, we, you know, it's okay. It's an embrace moment, you know. Other people take advantage of that, which is unfortunate. I would say no, I definitely haven't been able to tap into my vulnerability as a strength, not my whole life, but again, going to a lot of therapy and discovering these things about myself. You know, I've been reflecting on my family life growing up, like my childhood, and everyone has childhood trauma, whether you had a good childhood or not. You went through some shit, you learned some shit, and you know, it impacted you. And so for me, I'm just kind of processing some of that now in my 40s, you know, and learning that vulnerability as a strength has been my biggest savior in my life. That you describe being on stage and being vulnerable and being seen and criticized, and to me, that's the most real I can be. Like the more I share, the more free I feel, you know, because then I am unburdening myself. I don't have to suffer alone. And so that through vulnerability, I let those go. And it's scary, but it's necessary. Because again, the alternative is bottle it up, push it down, and have it explode at an inopportune time. And I'd rather, you know, try to invite people I trust into that space. And beyond that, I'm happy to share kind of anything. Like the more I share, the more free I feel. It's like a mantra of mine. And I've realized at points in my life when I'm not good and I'm not whole, it's because I'm not sharing, because I'm not engaged with others. You know, you learn so much about yourself through sharing, and you learn so much about others through sharing, because they will react in a way, and you get to learn about who they are in those moments.
So true. Like, yeah, vulnerability is a strength.
Yes.
And vulnerability brings people together.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
I mean, that in itself, I feel like is a bit of a moment because a lot of people struggle with relationships, getting close to people. But if you could just learn how to be a bit more vulnerable and to invite people in, then it can completely change like the narrative, right? And the thing is, like, with being a creative individual, I mean, we've already said you're acting, but you also do music and you also write. And so a lot of the work that you do is well, you tell me, but I imagine it's coming from a place of vulnerability, because it's what's in here that's either coming out of your mouth or going onto paper. And I know that you do some writing and that you put that out publicly.
Yeah.
And well, that's a kind of thing in itself, you know, that you're putting your personal work out there to be criticized once again. Yeah. Do you ever think about that, or is it just... for sure. Like,
I went through in the like early 10s. I had like a personal project every year. I would do like a long-term project. So, for example, the one that I'll talk about is in 2014. I wrote one essay per month. So I wrote 12 essays in 2014, and I published them to my blog at the time. And it was really just to try to learn how to write. Like there was no AI at the time, and you just have to write. You got to figure it out. It comes out of here. You got to know how to edit grammar. You got to know how to use the language, etc. And I wrote very personal things. I sent one to you recently, and that's the one that's going to get published. There's a piece that I wrote back in 2011. I wrote this piece, but because I was writing also before 2014. But I published this piece called "Divorce on the First Date" back in 2011 with it was like a blog site at the time that doesn't exist anymore called Thought Catalog, and it was great. And they would just publish people from all over the world, and they published my piece, and it was awesome because people really resonated with them. And then that website disappeared, and so it just lived on my own website. And just recently, I was going through my writings because I want to convert some into short films because I think they're funny. But the way I write is very personal. It's very vulnerable, but it's also humorous, mostly, not all the time. because like you, I feel like silliness and humor is an important aspect of humanity that I think we often overlook. And so I try to bring that into the dark stuff as well. So this piece it's called Divorce on the First Date. It's a story, a true story. I went on a first date with a woman and she was like, I don't believe in divorce. I was like, okay. I'm a child of divorce. So I was like, oh boy, like here we go. And the story just takes the reader through my mental process of like, here's how I responded. So it's funny, it's deep, it's thoughtful, whatever. But I think like going through that process of that 1 year, writing an essay every month that was like deeply personal, allowed me to be vulnerable. And it showed me that like the likelihood of anyone coming and like attacking me because of it, verbally or online or whatever, is so slim. No one's got time for that shit. Everyone's just invested in themselves. They don't care about me. So even if I'm putting stuff out there that is vulnerable, the likelihood of anyone kind of like coming for me is so low that I might as well just put it out, you know? And so it helped kind of strengthen that muscle of vulnerability and of, you know, getting on stage and doing a thing and then getting off stage and being like, fucking, it's over, oh well, you know? Yeah. Does that make sense? I don't know. Like, talking in circles a little bit, I think, but...
No, I understand what you're saying. Like, it's... you just have to sometimes, even if you're like a little bit worried about backlash or something, sometimes you do just have to go like, click, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's done.
That's what I did like every time. Right. And it was done, and then that was it. And then I can move on.
And then it's like, okay. And then you forget, like, and then it's out there.
Yeah, and I've received criticism. I remember, on topic, I remember the first time I put out music on my own, the first time I ever put out music was like a solo project. This is like early internet, so 2003 or 2004. Anyway, it seems so long ago, my God. But anyway, there was this website where you, as a musician, you could like put music up on this website and you would get credits by like rating other people's music. So then you can put more of your music up, right? So you have to get like, I don't know, I'm making this up, but like 5 credits to put up a song. So you have to go review others to get those credits. And so I would review some songs and then I would put mine out and then they would be open to the users of that site to come and review. And I put my first piece of music up and I was like so excited, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And I got like an email, because this was like before cell phones were really a thing. You know, like you get an email that was like, you have a review. So I like run home after work and like go on and read this review. And it's like, the review, I will never forget, the review said, this is terrible. It's like a child wrote this. Why would you ever put this out? And then they were like, no, scratch that. It's worse. It's worse than if a child wrote it. I was like, damn, that was like the first thing that a stranger has ever said about my music. And I felt so bad. And I remember like sleeping with it and like waking up the next day being like, wow, should I stop music? And then the next day I was at work and I get an email, you got another review on this track. I like run home, go on the thing. And it was like, this is the most, same piece of music. This is the most beautiful piece of music I've ever heard from a different person. I sat on the bed and I cried and it was amazing and all this shit. And I was like, okay. And it was a great lesson early on in the span of like 2 days where I was like, you're the worst and then you're the best. And the reality is I'm neither of those things. And I'm both of those things. And it wasn't me, it was that song. That piece of music sparked one person to feel something so deeply that they had to tell me that I was like a child. And it sparked something so deeply in the other person that they had to tell me how it impacted them and they cried because of it. And that's great. And that is true. And it doesn't matter because I'm still just going to write music, you know?
So beautifully put. Yeah, because it just explains and highlights that when people have an opinion or a judgment, it's very rarely personal to you and to your work. It's more about how they have perceived it, and perception is based on your own experience and what you've gone through, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, music is a great example because there's so many genres out there, different types of music, and one person could be absolutely in love with country rock music. Yeah. Another person could be in love with hip hop, and they will not like the others, but they will have so much love for the music that they love and dislike for another. But that doesn't mean that the other isn't good.
Exactly.
They just don't resonate with it.
Exactly.
And it's so important to remember that in life,
Yeah.
that and I think that's important for people to remember when it comes to showing up to the world as authentically as possible, to bring out your real character and your real personality, to let yourself show up, because yes, there are going to be some people who are like, oh, you are not my person, but there's going to be some people who are like, come in my circle, you are my person.
Exactly.
It's so important that people remember that.
What a good point, because it is about finding your people, right? And you talked at the very beginning about traveling and alone or moving somewhere, and the biggest thing that helps you feel at ease is community. And without community, I think we lose so much of ourselves. And I think that what a great connection that you just pulled, because it is so true. Like that the play that we did last summer, it was a very challenging topic, and I can imagine a lot of people were like, I'm not going to go see that, no chance. But the people who did, maybe it resonated, hopefully, and if not, that's okay, because it's just a moment in time that is now gone. And I think it is absolutely, every choice we make is a reflection of ourselves. Everything we say is a reflection of who we are. And so someone taking the time to like roll up their sleeves and be like, this is the worst piece of music I've ever heard, that's a reflection of who they are. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that they were in a place that they needed to say this. Same with the other person, right? So I find it all very fascinating. And that's also drives why I try not to care. Like, it doesn't really matter what people think, right? Like it doesn't, but it's hard not to believe it, right? It's hard not to think it does. Because like, I'm going to do what I do, and it will refine over time. And if it resonates, like you said, great. And if it doesn't, oh well, keep going,
Yeah, I think that's important. And also, if it makes you happy, because our time on this earth is, well, we don't know.
Right.
I'm not going to say it's short, because it might be long. Like, we just don't know, right?
Yeah, you have no idea.
And so, like, you have to then bring yourself, what I find is very grounding is bringing yourself back to that thought of, well, why am I here? Like, what is the point in me even being alive right now? Like, what am I showing up for? What do I want out of this time that I've got? And so when you're making decisions that are from the heart and that make you genuinely feel happy, then I think that's when we can say, does it matter what people think? Because, like, if they don't like it, then all right, so what? But I'm happy. And if I do end up dying tomorrow, at least I'm going to die knowing that I've done what made me happy, instead of being a slave to people pleasing or trying to show up for someone else's life.
Yeah. So. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that. I think that's 100%.
And then, like, because you've had a pretty big experience in your life, right? So if it's okay if we can talk about that, because I feel like that fits in
absolutely
quite to what we just said in terms of, like, thinking in that way. So 14 years ago,
2012,
you experienced a stroke. I mean, talk to me about that, because he's wild. Like, I mean, first of all, like, how can you talk about the experience?
So it was September 11th, 2012. It was a memorable date for Americans generally, but for me, but not the 2012 part, but basically I was 33 at the time and perfectly healthy, and I was the best man at one of my best friend's weddings. I lived in LA at the time, and the wedding was on Catalina, an island just off the coast of LA. And I got like a really sharp pain in my neck, kind of out of nowhere. And the whole weekend I just kind of like took ibuprofen and just thought it was like a headache or something. I didn't know. I got home a few days later, and on the 12th of September, I was at work on my lunch break. I worked in Santa Monica, and Santa Monica's right on the coast, and there was this lovely park that overlooked the beach, and I would go there for my lunch every day and just go outside, get some air, And I was actually writing a best man speech for 4 weeks from then for another friend who I was going to be his best man. And I was writing the speech, and I was walking back to work, and all of a sudden my vision just kind of collapsed into this like pinhole. And I got super nauseous, and I was like, oh my God, I thought I was going to throw up. And so I like kind of keeled over. I thought I was going to throw up. I didn't. And serious pain in my head and neck. And I navigated my way over to a bench, and I sat down on this bench, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. And then I got up to try to walk, and this guy was passing by, and I said, can you help me? I can't see. And the guy was like, what? Like, there's some shady characters in that area. So he was like, what, dude? And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't see. Can you just walk me to, I don't know where. I didn't have any plan. And I remember he had a Philadelphia Phillies hat on. Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love. So I will never forget that. But he helped me. He like walked me, and I just like had my hand on his shoulder, and I like couldn't see. And then walking towards me was a colleague of mine at my office. And I was like, Frank, I'm something's wrong. I can't see. And he like laid me down on a bench and called my boss at the time. It's confusing, but he came and picked me up and drove me to the hospital. And they couldn't tell what was going on. They looked at my eyes. Nothing was wrong with my eyes. I thought it was a migraine. I had no idea, you know. And then they admitted me, and I was in the ICU overnight. And the neurologist came and did a brain scan, because I did an MRI, CT scan, all the things. And he said, something's wrong with my brain. There's a mark on my brain. Basically, I had a stroke. And he was like, I don't know why that's happening. And then like the next day, this is the day after, I had another stroke. So from the same injury, another part of my brain just shut down. And so the doctor came in and was like, I think we have to operate. I don't know what's going on, but I think I have to relieve the pressure from your brain. So at that moment, I was like, oh shit. I thought they were gonna have to like cut me open. And there's just obviously inherent risk there. And then this neurologist was amazing. And he kept doing research. He did not want to operate. That was like absolutely not what he wanted to do. He kept doing all this research and looking at my scans. And he was able to track down a tiny little part of my brain. The blood started to move around this area that he couldn't see. So the blood started to reroute itself around what turned out to be a clot that came from a tear. So he saw this and he was like, I don't think we have to operate. And we put me on Coumadin and heparin, which are blood thinning drugs. And basically he was able to prevent me from having to have surgery. And what happened in time, we learned that I tore an artery in my brain. How? I don't know. And the tear clotted, and then the brain is amazing and started to reroute the blood around this clot. And so that's what he saw, but he couldn't see the tear and the clot. It's a little confusing. I have some diagrams I can show you, but anyway, we were able to, I had the moment after I had the second stroke, before he knew what it was. I thought that I was going to die. I was like convinced. Like he came into the room and said, what he said, I interpreted it in a way that was not what he meant. But he said, if we have to operate, he said, this is serious. There is no room for error. And that made me feel like, oh boy, this is it. And so I wrote my goodbyes to my family. Like my family was all on the East Coast. I had a newborn niece who I had never met. My nephew was little. And so I like wrote in my phone like goodbyes to my parents and my family and my friends. It sucked. It was really scary. But at the same time, I felt like, well, I've done everything I can and I've led a good life. Mm. And if I die today, then like, I'm happy with what I've left, you know? Mm. And so, I didn't die, obviously. The doctor ultimately came in and said what I said. He said, okay, I think I figured it out. We're just gonna put you on this like heavy, like blood thinning drugs and I think we'll be okay. And he was right. And so 7 days later, I got out of the hospital and my vision came back mostly. I have a small blind spot. And then the recovery then the road to recovery came. And I think the scariest, outside of saying goodbye. That was the saddest part, like saying goodbye to everyone. The scariest part was when I got home, because I was single. And so my cousin, who lived in LA at the time, she picked me up from the hospital and drove me home and dropped me off. And like she left and I was alone and I was scared because I came from the ICU and then med surg where you have a nurse within earshot of you all the time. And then I was just like at home alone and I thought I was gonna die that night just because I was like, oh, like something's gonna go wrong and no one's gonna be here. And I woke up the next day and then it was just every day after that, I just kept waking up and like, okay, this is just what it is. So, yeah.
I mean, sorry, I got so much to say. I choked up. I had to really hold those tears back when you started talking about, I can't even imagine how that was, like writing your goodbyes and, and you know what's really kind of struck me, because I guess I can really relate to it, is when you said about then going home and being by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did you go to sleep at night?
Yeah, it was scary.
I can relate because I also live alone and I get this weird like health anxiety sometimes at night where I'm like, what if I die? Or what if something happens? Like, you know, what can I do about it? There's no one here. And what if I'm not able to call because I'm too sick or something? You know, like, what do you do? So you sharing that is, I don't know, it doesn't give me comfort, but there must be so many people out there that also go through this fear, and especially if you actually have, you know, a serious health condition as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen to anybody at any time. I was 33, perfectly healthy, and this shit, we still don't know why it happened. I can guess, but we don't know why. I
mean, that's wild.
It's crazy.
And for the doctor to come in and say, don't really know what's going on, but...
Well, I told him to tell me, like, don't bullshit with me. Like, he came in and was like, listen, like, how do you want me to communicate with you, you know? And I've been in, I know what I need in situations. Like, just give it to me plain. Like, don't fucking sugarcoat it. Like, I don't need that. And he was like, word, this is not good, you know? And I was like, okay, well, what do I have to do? Like, what do I have to do to help you? And he was, you know, he was just like, nothing, but I will figure it out. Yeah, it was a crazy experience, and like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me that I never want to happen again, you know.
Because, and can I ask you why you say that?
Because it was like a wake up call,
right? And
so I know your personality enough, and we've talked enough today to know that when this happened to me, afterwards, it wasn't like I stubbed out a cigarette and was like, I'm never smoking again, you know. Like, I never smoked. I wasn't leading a bad life. I wasn't doing stupid shit. I wasn't fucked up in any, you know, stereotypical way, right? Like smoking, drinking, philandering, whatever.
I love how you said that, sorry, in a stereotypical way.
Yeah, right? I have my own problems. But like, what it did to me was show me that like, I was faced with my mortality and I was deeply saddened, but I also was very accepting. And if that's who I was in that moment, then holy shit, I've been doing something right. Because I wasn't like begging for my life or freaking out or anything like that. I was just like deeply sad writing those goodbyes and then accepting, well, fuck, you know, I've done the best I can. And I had a lot of music at that time that people would maybe look at and go, oh, this guy did music, cool, or whatever, you know, like an archive of things, of who was Steve, this is who he was. And so it showed me that like the path I was on was the right path. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to hear that. I'm going to listen. Thank you, universe. I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to continue on that path of love, coming from a place of love versus coming from a place of fear. Because I wasn't scared. You know, it's not that I wasn't scared. I mean, let's be honest. But I didn't let the fear contaminate the experience.
Yeah.
And I let the love win, right? Yeah. And that's genuinely like what I try to do every day. And it's fucking hard sometimes.
I'm so glad that you're being very raw and real about what you're saying, because it's true. I mean, I know like this podcast is all about how to be more courageous, but it's not saying that fear is bad. No. It's not saying that we should never feel fear. No. That's literally impossible. Yes. Like, we're humans, we're going to feel fear. The issue is when, as you said, you allow it, I kind of like how you said that, contaminate.
Yeah.
How if you allow the fear to contaminate and take over your life and change who you are as a person, that's when it becomes dangerous.
Yes.
And Yeah, so I love that you kind of had that experience from this. Has there been any like major shifts like in your life because of that experience, other than like obviously your view and
Yeah.
life,
At the
but...
time, like I couldn't exercise. I couldn't walk for longer than like, 50 meters. Like it was rough. Like I had to do nothing. I had to ask for a lot of help, which was at the time not something I did well. Like my cousin, who I mentioned before, she was in the hospital every day to visit me and picked me up, brought me home, and she drove me to all my doctor's appointments. I had other people in the city as well who helped me. My best friend and his fiance, who I was about to be their best man in like 4 weeks at that time, he and she came to the hospital all the time. But I had to ask them for a lot of help, and it was really hard for me because I grew up not asking for help. I talked before about like processing childhood trauma and stuff, and this taught me how to ask for help because people want to help. It's not a weakness. It's a strength to say, hey, I can't do this. Can you help? And people are, the right people are like, yes, let me please help you. I want to help you. So that was a huge one. And then just trying to get my body back because I couldn't do anything. And I just was like unhealthy, physically. And then after a certain period of time, I was off my meds. And then after a certain period of time, I was able to exercise. And then after another length of time, things just get better and better. But progress is not linear, right? Like I got out of the hospital, and then like a week later, I was back in the hospital because I was like freaking out because something was happening, and I got another MRI. So it was like progress, whoop, progress, whoop, progress, right? So it's like, it's staggered as you go. And I learned that as well. And so like, just because you're out of the hospital doesn't mean you're better, right? Just because you're out of a shitty relationship doesn't mean you're whole. Just because you quit a toxic job doesn't mean you're happy. It's like you have to keep putting pieces together, and it takes time. And it doesn't always look like it. In fact, I would say it never looks like what you think it should.
That's so beautifully put. Like what you were saying about just because you've done this or done that doesn't mean you're now like everything's going to be okay. Like there's still going to be something to navigate after that. And piecing together and everything. Yeah.
It's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And that's why, like we talked about before, having a goal and then trying to set out steps to achieve that goal, but also being flexible because the universe will push you in a different direction based on what you need. And it's not always going to be what you want. And so trying to be flexible within your own structure, But I think without a structure, you're kind of floundering. One is floundering. And then if you have too much structure, then you are inflexible to the beautiful things that happen that you're not paying attention to, because you're so, oh no, I have to do this thing next. But then you have this amazing opportunity that's knocking on your door and you're just like, nope, can't see it. So you have to find this intuitive balance between structure and flexibility. And that's hard.
We talk about fear as in stepping away from a safe zone and stepping towards an opportunity. But I'm quite interested in the fear that you get when you have two opportunities.
Yeah.
And you're like, you've kind of already surrendered to one, and then another opportunity comes your way and you're like, ah, shit. Like,
okay.
Now what?
For me, it is really just like deep critical thinking about like, what are the pros and cons, and like, what do I have to gain? What do I have to lose? And does this benefit anyone else or hurt anyone else? And you just kind of take it all in, synthesize it, and then go, okay, this is the one end of the spectrum. This is the other end of the spectrum. My decision has to fall somewhere in that spectrum. And it's not always on the polar ends, it might be in the middle somewhere. That's where having a good therapist helps. That's where having a good network of friends helps, a partner, parents, children, whoever, helps you kind of refine that analysis part of yourself,
I think it is also kind of a win-win, right? Because you either make the right decision and things go smoothly, or you make the wrong decision and, we can make wrong decisions if we're not like in the right mindset.
Yeah.
And then you have a negative outcome but then you learn from it.
Yes.
So then the next time you come across this experience, you're better informed, you have more self-awareness. So yeah, I think like when people are struggling with like decision fatigue or not being able to get clear on like what to go for, like which path to take, it's kind of like, well, win-win.
Yeah, and I think I agree with everything you just said. I think you can either go with option A or option B, just as a very basic example. And option A might be the preferred. You might think like, oh, that's the right one, but it'll come with challenges and positives. And then you might go with this one, and that also, you might think it's not the best one, but it comes with challenges and it comes with positives. At the end of the day, it's more important to make a decision than to make the right decision. Because the right decision is not, you can't foresee what the right decision is. It's only upon reflection. And so just make a decision and then you can adjust, you know? So I feel like when I'm in that moment, the decision is less important than the commitment to the decision. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, if I have option A and option B, it's not about the right call. It's about saying, I'm gonna commit to A as long as I can. And if that doesn't work and B is still available, great. Or if it's not, I'm not gonna worry about it. It's done, it's gone. I'm not gonna beat myself up over making the wrong decision because I've done that in the past so many times and it hasn't got me anywhere. Like if we're not living in the present, where are we? We're living in regret in the past, we're living in the future in hope or fear. Well, then we're not here now. So I'm missing so much if I'm living in either of those two places, you know? Yeah. So.
I was going to ask you about your current fears, but actually I think what I'm more interested in is have you ever had like a really overwhelming fear in your past that you were able to overcome?
Yeah, I can be sort of trite with like spiders.
Okay.
I'll do another one that's a little more spiritual, but spiders, yes. Like I used to be terrified of spiders when I was younger, and then I kind of like rationalized it a little bit. Like there's a spider over there. He's not going to come over here and hurt me. So I'm just going to look at him. And so I just looked at spiders. And then I know that they're good. Like I know that they're helpful. They kill mosquitoes. They like clean up the house a little bit, you know? And so I just would look at them and realize like, this is just a little guy. He's not going to do anything to me. And then let him live, and it was fine. And so over time, I've become less and less afraid of spiders.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one.
I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, I stare at spiders to make sure they don't come my way. Like,
I mean, that's part of that too.
Stay away.
I do that too. I'm like, hey, no, this is my son. You can stay over there.
Oh my God, so you just stare them out until
just
they're
stare
like,
and, look
who
at
is
them.
this awkward human? I'm going to fuck off.
Exactly. Make them feel weird and leave. Or just let them know that like, just appreciate what they are, you know, genuinely. Like that's an animal, that's a fully sentient being that is like, is sentient the right word? Fully functional being that is like just doing his thing. Like he's not trying to hurt me. He doesn't give a fuck about me. He doesn't want to deal with me. And I'm just trying to like be reasonable about that. And it's given me a much deeper appreciation for animals generally in my life.
I like that approach.
Because it's a real thing. It's alive. And I don't want to like fuck with it. Except for mosquitoes. They can go to hell.
Bloodsuckers.
Yeah, exactly. But like on a more sort of thoughtful approach, I would say the idea of getting over my own shit, right? Like getting out of my own way. Because 99% of the time, it's because of us that we are not achieving the things we want to achieve. There's the 1% where someone is legitimately just forcing you to not do it. But I do my best to just get out of my own way, to recognize that like, I don't know best and I don't know what's best for me all the time. Sometimes for sure, but not all the time. And so I have to tune into the universe and listen. Is this like, what am I being told by the universe? What am I being told by the people around me? What am I like, you have to infer a lot. And I try to just infer and kind of read the room. Universally and then like literally, you know what I mean? Because I don't always know what's best, and that's okay. I don't have to have all the answers, and so I'm trying to like get out of my own way, trying to think like, no, this is correct because I believe it's right, and I'm trying to get over that. So I have been afraid of letting go, and I'm doing my best to let go more. And again, super hard. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm working on now, deeply.
And because you said, and it's a very spiritual term, and I love it. And I honestly always speak about the universe, because there's just some things that you cannot explain, like the timing of things, and you know. And I'm also a believer in just, I'm not heavily spiritual, but I am a believer in energy and magnetic fields, because that is literally scientific. Like, we cannot argue that. But when you said then, like, one of your processes for trying to stop getting out of your own way is that you listen to the universe, like, what does that actually mean? From a factual point of view.
Definitely. So I think it's like, it really comes down to, let me think of a good example. I think acting is a good example, the audition process. So auditioning is a soulless life suck. I think we all know, right? I hate it. Because you never get any feedback. It's like you're in the moment, you may get feedback if you're in person, and then you disappear and you might never hear from them again. And that's normally the way it is. And sometimes you get a call back, sometimes you get a role, and sometimes you get feedback. But very rarely, so you can't bank on that. But when you do other stuff, like I did the play, right? So I got the audition, that's great, but I was in the play, and that resonated with people, and people saw me. And then I was at a Asia Pillars networking event, and people were like, hey, I saw you in the play, you were really good. Okay, so maybe I'm not getting all these roles, but people are taking the time to tell me that I'm good, or that they remember me from a thing. That's the universe saying, hey, we're here, we're listening, right? And it doesn't mean I'm great. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It just means that people are listening. And you were one of those people, you know, I'm so grateful for that. And then, like, I did a showcase and people were like, you were really good, or I saw you, or this was interesting, or that was cool. Okay, so maybe I'm not booking the roles, but when I do put myself out there, I'm getting something back. So it's like, don't quit. Because it's easy, like we talked about before, to just be like, fuck it, I'm terrible. I'm not getting any calls, right? So it's like things like that, things like this, that we connected. And like, you invited me on this amazing podcast to talk about things that are so important in a time where we need to talk about this stuff, you know. The timing's there, right? Like you said, that's the universe. Put us together, kind of, we were in each other's orbit a little bit, and then like, bam, here we are, you know.
Steve, to wrap up, this question can be like quite tough for some people. I want to ask you, like, just speaking to the audience, if you had like one piece of life advice, given everything that you've experienced, to like the viewer, like, what would that be?
Yeah, it's simple. Be kind. That's it. Be kind. You can't fake kindness. So that's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so nice. And what a lovely way to end as well.
Yeah. Thanks you. I'm so grateful that you had me on and we were able to do this finally.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Of course.
I'm grateful that no one was doing maintenance today.
I know. That is a good move. Yeah. Thank God.
No, Steve, thank you so much
of course.
for joining me
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate it.